My name is Thomas Neal. I'm a division chief with the Annapolis Fire Department, and I'm the program manager for Indiana Task Force 1. So my job and my role at 9/11 was I was the plans ops manager. So my whole basically daily routine was to track all of our operations while at Ground Zero, and we were at Station 10 Command. So Station 10 sat right across the street from Tower 2 and Building 4. And so when the towers came down, the debris literally came all the way to the front of the firehouse. So I was actually working the firehouse the day before. I just walked in the door at the house. My wife was getting our two kids ready to go to school, and I was sitting there eating breakfast, and we were watching the Today Show. Just happened to be on that channel, and we were watching the news, and they broke in with breaking news indicating that there had been a small aircraft that struck, the World Trade Center 1 tower. And so I got up and turned it on the larger TV, because we just had a little small TV in the kitchen. And I'm standing there watching it, and I saw the helicopter go behind Tower 2, and all of a sudden this huge ball of fire comes out of Tower 2. And at that point, I knew we were under attack, some sort of terrorist attack against New York City. And so I left for my part-time job. I was carrying a pager because of the fire department, and the pager went off, and I knew that we were being activated to go to New York, where at that time, the Pentagon had just gotten hit. So we didn't know which site we were going to, but we were going. So at that time, we had a facility that we housed all our equipment in that was on Indianapolis International Airport property. And so we processed 62 members of our team and 4 canines through the process, got the equipment loaded, and we were to be on the road within 4 hours of the activation. So it took us a little longer because we had people that were being moved on the roster, taken off the roster, back and forth to finalize that roster. And then we drove literally 16 hours straight through and began our work at Ground Zero at 8:32, September the 12th. Probably the first sight of what was going on at Ground Zero is when we crested the hill coming towards the Lincoln Tunnel. We were under police escort all the way from Indiana all the way into New York, and we crested the hill just west of the Lincoln Tunnel, and the New Jersey State Trooper was leading us. And we came up over the hill, and you could see the South Manhattan skyline, and you could see the smoke. The first time we went physically down to Ground Zero, very chaotic, a lot of people still mulling around, dust, you couldn't get away from it. So those are the pictures that kind of always play in your head, and you remember, and then just the smell. I mean, at the time it was still burning, just the burning of the fuel, the plastics, just the debris everywhere. When you consider 110-story buildings twice, both Tower 1 and Tower 2, and then the other buildings that were affected, all of those buildings had been, had collapsed or burned, and then Tower 7 collapsed 6 hours approximately after the original attacks from fire. So we were there to do search and rescue. Amongst all the other teams, we worked alongside FDNY, NYPD, and other agencies. So we diligently worked on Tower 2, Building 4. We gained access to the subway tunnels to go underneath the building to see if there was anyone that still may have escaped but been trapped. We searched the retail area, so there was a whole shopping mall underneath the World Trade Center, and so we did all that searching. We got into the parking garage where the water was coming in from the Hudson River, so you couldn't go too far because it kept getting deeper and deeper as farther you went. So, but our whole time there, we were there 8 days physically on site. We did basically search and rescue, a lot of hand movement of debris. We would crawl through void spaces, and when the towers collapsed, they pancaked down. So 110 stories, basically reduced to a 16-story building by a 10-acre site. And so there were some void spaces we were able to get into and get some robotic equipment into to search for victims that may have survived. That, of course, we didn't find any. Most of the survivors from 9/11 were taken out shortly after 9/11 by their own personnel, FDNY or NYPD or the Port Authority. You see that day after day after day, but you see also the changes that were happening in the rubble pile. So I worked day shift. We went from 7 a.m. to roughly 8 or 9 p.m. in and around the pile. And then we would go back and do some paperwork, eat dinner, and then our day would end about 2 or 3 in the morning. We'd get back up at 5, have a briefing, and go right back to work. So each morning we would come back and there was so much debris being moved every day. It was being hauled away and it was being sifted off-site to the Fresh Kills landfill, where they were sifting for human remains and artifacts, people's jewelry, personal effects, wallets, all that stuff. And so it was always interesting to show up in the morning and go, wow, they moved a lot of material overnight. And you would see it in the daytime, but then in the morning you just get a fresh picture of it. Emotionally, we took live canines, and their job is to find live people. And so after days of not finding anyone alive, you could see the dog would get down, emotionally down. So we would have to play hide and seek games to keep the dog active and wanting to go to work day after day. So, yeah, I mean, you come back from it, you're exhausted because now the adrenaline rush of being there and knowing that you have a job to do, to work, and you were basically up 21 to 22 hours a day. You just didn't want to leave. You wanted to do your job and hope that, there would be a miracle that you would find somebody alive. But you come home and you're kind of that, you're on that emotional down and you're exhausted. So, some good rest and some time away from that scene, because it does stick with you. Just don't forget history. History is a part of our country's heritage, our history, and we can learn a lot of things from our past that will help us in the future.